And the last one, beech bark disease. A lot of you guys probably have had some experience with this one as well. It's a complex. It's partly an insect and it's partly a fungus. You know, this insect is pretty much through the native range of beech trees in Michigan until it parcelizes in lower Michigan, and that kind of helped us slow the spread. So this is the distribution of beech trees in the east. They're used for a lot of different products. They're a big timber source. They're a low value timber because people don't use it because it's not a strong wood. But you do use it for boring utensils because it doesn't have a smell. You know, and it's kind of a plain, nice, grainy wood that people like to use for furniture and so forth. But almost more importantly is it's huge for wildlife. Okay, it's big with cavities because there's over 70 types of decay fungi that get into beech trees and kind of hollow it out. So a lot of birds use it, a lot of small mammals use it for nesting locations. You know, it is used partially for timber. It does have beech nuts, and a lot of people actually don't even realize that beech nuts are an important source for wildlife and birds. It's a lot of people actually think of nut sources for wildlife as in oak. So you have your red oak, which is really high in protein to help animals get around and have the energy to keep going. And then you have white oak trees that have a lot of trans fats that help anybody that's hibernating over the winter to get through that winter. And white oak doesn't really have a lot of protein, and then the red oaks don't have a lot of trans fats. The good thing about beech nuts is they have the same amount of protein as a red acorn, and they have the same amount of trans fats as a white acorn. So you get both in one nut. Okay. And then they are aesthetically pleasing for a lot of people, and they like to carve their names and stuff into it and make them of our beech trees. So this is a little bit outdated map, but I'm just going to show you a couple things. First, it got started in Nova Scotia in 1890s. You know, it's been around in North America for a really long time. It's moving very slowly through the resource. It was found in Michigan in 2000 in 2 different locations. The red dots kind of show you where. One was up in Bass Lake Campground in Luce County, and then one was down in Ludington State Game Area, Ludington State Park. Sorry. And kind of have been moving, and this is kind of where we're at right now. This is just based on data that we've been able to get out and collect. The beech scale was followed pretty closely till 2014. Now we're relying on just reports from new counties to add new counties. So there's probably more counties that have beech scale. The killing front we can kind of see from the air, you know, and we can get a decent recognition of where it is. The Upper Peninsula is pretty wide spread. You know, the aggressive Neonectaria fungi is in the UP. It just jumped to the Lower Peninsula around 2012, so you do see a lot of mortality in Emmett County. We've been seeing it down in the Grayling area now. A lot of the other killing fronts over here actually are a less aggressive Neonectaria datisma, and they kill usually 1 to 2% of beech trees. It's not a huge component, but you do see a lot more mortality in conjunction with beech scale, because the beech scale is feeding on the bark, causing little holes in the bark for these spores to get into and start the infection. Okay. The insect itself is very small, very hard to see, without any kind of magnification. It is feeding on the sap, but it has a really short stylet, so it doesn't actually get to the foam layer. It's somewhere in the middle. So a lot of insecticides do not work well, or systemic insecticides do not work for beech scale. Okay, insecticides do work as a contact spray in some cases, but yeah, do not think injecting your trees or doing a basil or soil drench is going to protect that tree from beech scale. Done a number of studies and it does not work. So, they're parthenogenic, so all it takes is one to get started. They lay 50 eggs each. They're just one generation a year, but it's still going to build pretty rapidly. Usually you'll detect it at a low infestation, and it'll take 1 to 2 years to become whitewashed or basically covered in white wax if it's highly susceptible to beech scale. So they do grow and the population really fast. And their main dispersal is through wind, but like HWA, they can use mammals, they can use birds, they can use humans. So there are a lot of ways that this crawler can get around. Moving on past the first phase, so that pretty much covered the advancing front. So there's 3 different phases. The advancing front pretty much says, hey, beech scale is in this area. Then we move into the killing front. The killing front, big change is Neonectaria is now in that stand and causing mortality or dieback throughout your stand. You might see the cankers. This isn't a great picture of a canker. Usually they're very circular, almost about a quarter to a half dollar size. And they'll kill these patches around the tree, and then they'll start to coalesce together, and as the tree grows they turn into more of a mess like this. You'll see yellowing or dieback in your trees. It's a good symptom. You'll also see mortality. But usually before you see mortality in trees, you'll see beech snap, where it'll break halfway up the trunk and the canopy will come down. This beech snap is very common along the lake. Okay? Weddington State Park, you can walk through there and just half of the beech trees are laying over because they snapped off. And they've had beech scale and beech bark disease for a really long time, since 2000. Okay. And then after the killing front, you move into the aftermath forest. You can get a lot of beech regeneration because it kills beech trees so fast that the root system's still alive, still has a lot of nutrients, and it kicks up a lot of sprouts, some root sprouts. So you'll see a lot of regeneration coming, and then you'll see these trees that, they get to a certain size and then they get reinfested with beech scale, and then they get reinfested with Neonectaria, and they get called up. They don't really look like beech trees. I've had a number of people come over from overseas, like Europe, that have had it for a really long time. They don't even know what a beech tree looks like without beech bark disease. We walked past perfectly smooth beech trees, and they didn't know it was a beech tree. That's how bad it is over there. And the far right picture is actually a picture from Europe. Some stats on beech bark disease. Only 50% of your stems are going to die. That doesn't sound too bad, considering. But when you look into it a little bit more, you're losing 92% of your basal area. So you're losing all your big trees. All your small trees are basically just escaping it for the time being. And that's why that number seems lower than it should, because it really is. It's a deception. Okay. For the most part, with these canopies dying off and gaps are forming, red maples are really the big of taking over in these areas. And just to talk a little bit about what the state's been doing, that hasn't been working really well for us, is that we went through in the UP and we did a lot of salvage cuts. You know, good thing about the UP is where we did these salvage cuts, these beech trees were already dead. So the root system was dead as well. So when we went through and cut them all, we didn't get a lot of sprouting from beech trees, and we could get desirables, maples, things like that come back up in those stands. The problem with the UP is we have too many deer, and the deer are pretty much eating all of our seedlings, and we're not even getting desirables in those stands. We're getting more rose and buckthorn invasives, vigor in those areas. In the lower peninsula, we also did some salvage cuts, trying to get ahead of beech scale and to reduce and contain. Now the problem with that is we're cutting down live trees. When we cut down live trees, all the root systems brought up root sprouts. So we had all these beech thickets, and it basically choked out anything else in those areas. You know, so we were losing, you know, our maples and everything in those areas because we had so many beech thickets. And the bad thing is the beech thickets, you know, they'll thin out on their own, but then the ones that survive are still susceptible to beech scale because the parent was, you know, it has the same genes. So we didn't really win in that, and we're still actually trying to figure out a better management option moving forward with beech bark disease. But there is a little bit of hope. We are, just like ash trees, we're going into beech resistance. There has been shown to be about 1 to 2% resistant beech on the landscape. Usually it's based on two different things. You could be looking at physical resistance. The smoother the bark, the less beech scale can actually get attached and established on it. And like we were talking earlier, if it's a small tree, has a really small surface area, it's hard for beech scale to find that tree versus a big tree that has a really big surface area. The other is genetic resistance. And that's the one that we're really trying to focus in on. You know, we're going out, we've been doing it the last couple weeks, looking for these beech trees that look like they're resistant. You know, it might be physical resistant, it might be genetic, and then we're challenging these trees by artificially infesting them. And what we're doing is we're putting beech scale onto those and seeing if they take. If they take, chances are the resistant was through physical resistance. If they don't take, then we got genetic resistance. And those are the trees that we want to focus in on, take scions from those trees, send them in, propagate them, and develop them up. Now this has been going a little bit longer than the ash study has, so we've actually been able to go out and plant over 200 of these resistant beech trees back into Ludington State Game Area. I don't know why I keep calling it State Game Area. But that happened back in 2017, and we're still working on it. We're still trying to find more trees to get up our genetic diversity, but still have genetic resistance. And to report it, you can always send it to us or put it in through MISC. So it's kind of the same for everything that we're doing. I see MISC as a great tool for you guys to use, and I don't want you guys to have to use a different interface. You know, and it's a great way for us to get data like this from you guys pretty readily, pretty fast. Okay.
Hey James, on the reporting, we don't want reports from everywhere in the state, right? It'd be more in the area that is.
Yeah, so For the most part, we're just looking for areas that we don't know the fungus is or the scale is so that we can update our maps. There's not a lot of management we're doing on private lands, but we do want to, help people understand beech bark disease and what they can do with their trees, and we don't want them to be going out and spending a whole bunch of money and not getting what they want out of it. So the expertise we do have, and we want to share that. But yeah, mainly we're looking for those areas that we don't know beech scale is, or the neonectarid fungus. Now, neonectarid ditissima is the native fungus that's statewide. So that we don't really care about. It's more of the aggressive neonectarid that we're looking for.
So if we see evidence, if we're in that gray zone, where we know we've got beech scale all over and we start seeing evidence of fungus moving in, you want us to report
Yeah,
that?
if you can report it to either Missing or us, that'd be great.
So my dad's property is actually being taken over with beech scale currently. Like all of his trees are dying. Like I don't really know the best thing to suggest for him to do right now. Right now he's just kind of going crazy, cutting firewood everywhere. But
Where is he located?
we're in Wexford County.
Wexford. So you probably have a lot of ditissima in that area. Galaga might be there in a couple decades, maybe a decade. The beech scale is going to reduce the vigor of the tree, but it isn't going to kill it outright. So you might see some mortality from ditissima, but largely I would just focus on those that have targets. They're hazard trees. If they're close to a house or your driveway or something like that, take those down first. But in reality, you can probably leave the other ones stand for a little while, not have to worry about cutting them down right away.
Okay.
Or you could, if they're out in the woodlot, you can just let them lay their course and then take the firewood when they come down.
Do you have species that you would recommend underplanting for those woodlands that like, wow, all this beech is probably going to die? Maples, is there any other suggestions you have?
It really depends on the site.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, maples grow fast. The red maples will do better than sugar maples because of deer and the fact that they grow faster than sugar maple. But it really depends on the landowner. Whatever they kind of would like to see, and we would like to diversify the best we can, or push people kind of towards that. A lot of people aren't going to be too happy to go that route, but some people are, and some people understand. If we can explain why we want to diversify, then I think that's a good starting.
Just a caution about red maple, that's an invader in some ecosystems. So you want to be cautious with that in natural